Okay, yesterday we started learning about immersing the kelim vessels in the mikveh. We discussed various different things. Now, when you immerse vessels in the mikveh, it has to be the same kosher mikveh that it is for women. Meaning, it can't be a regular swimming pool. It has to be a mikveh that has 40 saw of rainwater, the whole thing. 40 saw of rainwater, which is approximately close to 100 gallons of water, and it has to be built in a proper way. You just can't immerse kelim in a swimming pool, or even in a river. It's questionable. If it's a river that dries up in the summer, you also can't immerse vessels in that during the winter either. So there's a lot of din. Nowadays they have what's called kelim mikveh. What is a kelim mikveh? Is basically a box in the ground connected to the ground of cement, and they just fill it with rainwater. That's why it's murky and it's stagnated, because they don't change the water like they do when people immerse in a mikveh. But this is plain rainwater that people immerse kelim in. What?
Is that 100 gallons?
Approximately 100 gallons.
Sorry?
Approximately 196 gallons, whatever. Why?
Ocean water is okay.
What? Ocean water is the best possible mikveh. In Chumash it says, Mikveh hamayim kari yamim. What Hashem called the yamim, the seas, mikveh hamayim, a gathering of water. So yeah, you could table it in the ocean. Certain rivers, you could use some rivers. You can't use, even lakes. If a lake is man-made, you have man-made lakes, that's not kosher mikveh. If it's natural lake, by itself, so to speak, then it is a kosher mikveh. Because the rainwater has to come into a mikveh naturally without any electrical utensils on the way. Like a pump would not qualify it. If it's pipes, depending what the pipes do, if it's a pipe that has a receptacle or like a right-angled pipe, it also wouldn't be kosher if the rainwater comes down that way. Therefore, in the let's say women's mikvahs, on the roof, they make a slanty roof a little bit with holes in the corners of the roof, that when it rains, the water basically goes down because it's at an angle, and then goes into a pipe. And the pipe has to be a certain type of a pipe, number one, that has no right angle to it, because if it's a right angle, then water catches, that becomes a vessel that water catches into. And then it becomes what's called mayim she'uvim, drawn water from a vessel, which is no good. So then again, we're not going into the building, it's very complicated. But the bottom line is that you need to table dishes in the same type of a mikveh that women would be allowed to table in. Now, what type of utensils need to be immersed in the mikveh? So, metal, glass, wood does not need to be immersed, and same thing, earthenware. Like if you have a ceramic mug, it doesn't have to be tabled. But nowadays you do, because if it's glazed, most mugs today are glazed, there's a shiny glaze on it, so then that's partially glass. And because it's partially glass, then you also need to immerse it in the mikveh. The same thing if you have a wooden knife, right? So the wood part doesn't have to be immersed, technically. But the metal blade, that has to be immersed in the mikveh. So even if it's partially, sometimes you have utensils or whatever they are, it's partial glass, partial wood, partial metal, whatever it is. If there's any glass in it or metal in it, it needs to be immersed. All the synthetic stuff, for instance, plastic, let's start with plastic. Plastic, according to most opinions in Halacha, does not have to be tabled. Plastic doesn't. Our custom is that we do table hard plastic. And even if you make a bracha, when you immerse kelim, you don't make a bracha on plastic, because it's questionable if you need to do it or not. But a lot of these synthetic materials, like Corningware, Corel, all these new types of things, it's really an argument if they need to be tabled or not. Therefore, the custom is you table them, but you don't make a bracha. Many people don't make a bracha anytime they immerse kelim in the mikveh. They just immerse it without a bracha. Why? Because some people want to say, the law is like this. If it's a Jewish-owned company, even if the workers are non-Jewish, you don't have to immerse it. If it's a non-Jewish owner and Jewish workers, you do need to immerse it. Therefore, let's say a lot of silver Kiddush cups, it's called bechers in Yiddish, yeah? That come from Israel. So basically, a lot of Arabs are working there in the company, but it's owned by a Jew. It's Israelis that own the company. Many companies, by the way, I know, as they say, it used to be this way, things are changing thanks to coronavirus, but they used to say, God made heaven and earth, everything else is made in China. So now the question, believe it or not, a lot of Jews own those Chinese companies. They have Chinese workers, but the owner is a Jew. So now the question is, you don't know. A lot of companies, so if you know for sure it's a non-Jewish company that made it, then you have to make a bracha. If you don't know, then many people say, listen, we don't know because it's possible it came from a Jewish owner. But that's the same thing. But what?
Why did you say woman's mikveh? You didn't say man or woman. Why did you separate?
Women need a different type of a mikveh than men do. Like for men, we know we go in a swimming pool. Swimming pool is not a kosher mikveh for women.
The mikveh that we go in the morning is
the pico mikveh, yeah, is very kosher for women and very kosher for utensils. The problem with a swimming pool, why it's only kosher for a man to remove a male impurity versus the woman's nida impurity. The woman needs, like we said before, rainwater comes naturally into the pool and so on and so forth. Men, the halacha is mayim she'uvim, which means even drawn water, even water that comes with a pail. You take a pail and load it up, so that's also good. As long as it's connected in the ground, okay, and there's no metal stopper or whatever, and as long as it's connected to the ground, there's X amount of water in it, then it's good. Otherwise, it's not good even for a man. You can't take these swimming pools for kids. Yeah, these swimming pools for kids. It could be pretty big. It could be enough water. You can fill it up with water. A man can't immerse in it. Even a man can't immerse in it because it's not connected to the ground. It has to be connected to the ground. That's the criteria. But for a man's impurity, regular sink water would be enough. For women, that's not enough. They need dafka to have something rainwater or connected to rainwater. In other words, the mikveh that we go to, let's say, using the example, the Pico mikveh, the Yeshiva mikveh, whatever. Okay, whatever mikveh you're talking about. What the men immerse in and what the women immerse in is not rainwater. It's not rainwater. It's regular city water. But the way the Pico mikveh is made, because it's made in Chabad way and Chabad and non-Chabad way, by the way. So it's called a bird. Bird literally means a pit. But there's an amount of water either next, like for instance, if this is the place that the people immerse in, okay? This is not rainwater. It's filtered water, city water, whatever it is. But next to it, or Chabad customers underneath it, there's this large amount of a cement pit, so to speak, that has rainwater. Then there's a hole. If you ever go in the mikveh, you see there's a hole. Okay, that hole goes from the sink water to the rainwater. And the din is, once the rainwater and the sink water is called in Hebrew hashaka. Hashaka means to kiss. When the city water kisses the rainwater, halachically it's considered as if it's rainwater. So that's the way it makes. I mean, there's much more things in the mikveh than what I'm just telling you now. But so even though women are not actually immersing physically in rainwater, because rainwater you're not going to have every day new rainwater, and then it goes through filters, and filters is a vessel, which would disqualify a mikveh just by filtering it once. So after the filtration, it goes through what's called hamshacha gimel tvachim agav karka. It goes on cement more than 12 inches on the ground, and then it goes into the side mikveh, the whole thing, the way the mikveh is built, without any question. But putting it simply, so men, if they're impure, they can immerse in something of sink water like a swimming pool or jacuzzi, as long as it's that amount of city water, and for a man that's good. So dishes and kalim, pot, whatever, pots and pans, utensils need to be immersed in a mikveh which is kosher for women. Rainwater. What? First of all, it's Tisha Kabin.
I got a question.
1 second. There's what you're talking about, Tisha Kabin, which is basically they pour on you Tisha Kabin from 3 kalim, not from the whole. That's another complicated issue. But Gimel Lugin is a different thing. That's rainwater that falls into a non-40 saw mikveh. It disqualifies the mikveh. Well, yes.
When you're in the ocean and you're using it as a mikveh, can you wear your swimming trunks or do you have to take them off?
No, there has to be no separation between the person's body and the water.
Can you hold it in your hand, your swimming trunks?
No, you have to let's go for a second. Even when you immerse the kale, let's say, look, if you want to immerse this is, let's say, okay, use this instead. Let's say this I need to immerse in the mikveh, and this is the mikveh. If I put it into the mikveh holding onto it, the part I'm holding onto is not getting hit by water, okay? So what you usually do is let go for a second and catch it right away. Not like I'm doing now, but you catch it.
It's easier in the water.
Or some people say that if you immerse your hand in the mikveh first, then even if you hold it, it's valid. But the best thing is when you table in a mikveh, utensils or whatever, you let go for a second. That's the way it works. Okay, next thing. Now, a child is not allowed to immerse vessels in a mikveh on their own. It means a boy under bar or a girl under bar bas mitzvah. Why? Not because you need somebody brilliant to they're not believed to say they did it. In halacha, in mitzvahs, you need to have the belief. Now you believe. You need to have belief of a boy 13 and 12, boy and girl. But therefore, let's say your father takes his 10-year-old son, 11-year-old son to table kalim in the mikveh, and the father's watching the way the kid does it, so then you don't need the trust of the kid to say he tabled it because the father's saying that it was tabled. So a kid could table dishes in the mikveh because even if the thing fell by itself into the mikveh, it's good. Right? What happens? Somebody by mistake just throws something into the mikveh and it sinks, goes underwater. It's good. Therefore, you have to be careful. A lot of times when you have, like, say, a bottle, let's say you're tabling a glass bottle with a narrow spout. So, as everybody knows, when you put it into the mikveh, you have to wait until the whole thing is full, inside and outside. Then you have to table it, you let go, and then people try to table things 3 times to make sure they did it right or whatever. So if it has a spout, you have to make sure that when it goes underwater, that the entire inside of the bottle is filled with water also. Okay.